You need to find your parents. Those words came from Sam Collier's adopted father. After all, he said, you don't want to wind up marrying a cousin. That search took Sam and his sister to the set of the Steve Harvey Show. So what happened next? Take a look.
So many. Do you guys love
Sam Collier is a popular speaker and the host of the TV and podcast program, A Greater Story. As infants, Sam and his twin sister, Sarah, were placed into the foster care system, but soon adopted by a loving couple. The pair was reunited with their birth mom on national TV in 2013. Sam believes that God can write a better story for each of our lives than we can. He shares his own amazing journey in A Greater Story.
And Sam Collier joins us now via Skype. Sam, welcome to the 700 Club.
Wendy, it is just such an honor to be with you today. You guys have been doing great things for years.
Awesome. Well, great to have you here, and your story is so incredible. Now, your mom, she gave you and your twin sister up for adoption. Why did she do that, Sam?
Yeah, when our mother was 21, she had 3 kids already. And then she had me and my twin sister. It makes 5 kids, age 21, and she was in extreme poverty. Our father was addicted to all types of substances, drugs, and left the picture. And here she is in the hospital having to make a decision. Do I raise them in poverty, or do I give them up for adoption, kind of send them up the river like Moses and hope that everything works out? And she decided to do that.
Sam, you've said that your adoptive parents tried to make adoption a cool thing. How did they do that?
Yeah, I think we were into Disney when we were very young, and they adopted us around 2 months and took us home around 5 months during the week of Christmas. And I think as far as we can remember, they've always told us that we were adopted, and they would make it really cool and say, you're adopted. We don't know much about your birth family. We don't think they could take care of you, but we're here now. And so it was like, we're your heroes. So we started going to school and telling everybody we were adopted. And the other adopted kids were saying, well, I'm adopted as well. And the kids that weren't adopted started telling their parents, can we be adopted? And so they just made it cool.
That is so amazing. Well, they obviously were very loving parents, and what a blessing that you ended up with them. But did you ever still deal with feelings of rejection, that you were unwanted by your birth mother?
Yeah, in this book that we just released, I had a team, and we sat together and just kind of talked through some different things. And one of the things that one of my collaborators, actually, Ashley Wiersma, said, she said, how did it feel to be abandoned? And I said, I was abandoned. And she said, yeah, like technically that happened. And I realized in that moment that my parents were so accepting and loving, and by the grace of God, that we never felt a sense of abandonment, but more so focused on being accepted. It wasn't until we reunited with our family that we even began to process the idea of abandonment. That's why I say to people, if adoption is done, in my opinion, well, with the Spirit of God and with the help of God, then it can fill some holes that may otherwise not be filled.
Sam, how did the search for your birth mother end up on the Steve Harvey Show?
Yeah, my adoptive dad, Lamar Collier, my dad, I dedicated this. He said, it's time for you to go find your biological family. I'm 24 at the time. I said, well, why are you yelling? What's going on? He said, well, you could grow up one day and marry your cousin and you would never know it. And I said, what? I mean, this man is crazy. And he said to me, I was watching the Steve Harvey Show in his barbershop down on Auburn Avenue one day, and he said, the Lord told him, and I think you're like this, Wendy, the Lord told him that Steve Harvey was going to help us find our biological family. Well, in that moment, I got up and walked out of the room, and I said, he's crazy. I think he's lost his mind. And I find out 2 weeks later, he convinces my twin sister to write into the show. And I asked her why she didn't. She said, Steve Harvey's not going to call us back. A year goes by. My phone rings. It's my sister. I answer the phone. She says, the Steve Harvey Show just called me. They're going to call you. Bye. And hung up the phone. Then my phone rings another minute. And it is Chicago, and it is, in fact, the Steve Harvey Show. A producer that had just been hired on the job a week in found our story out of 100 on the top and said, we think we can help you find your biological family, do you want to do it?
That's
How we ended
incredible.
up on
You
the
waited a
show.
year for that phone call. What happened when you saw your mom? Because they told you to come on the show, and they didn't really have your mom. They said, well, we tried to find her, but we didn't. They tricked you. I mean, what happened when you actually got on the show?
Yeah, Dorothy, the producer, and did not know which one to choose. I was frozen. I heard the audible voice of God with my head down say to me, snap out of it, you're on national television. And your biological mother is standing in front of you. You need to embrace her. And that's what I did.
Well, we know that the story continued, and you have a great relationship with her now, and you even met some other siblings that you didn't have. There's so much more, and of course, it's all turned into a greater story, which is the title of your amazing new book, A Greater Story by Sam Collier. My Rescue, Your Purpose, and Our Place in God's Plan. You want to get a copy of this. And you can also hear more from Sam by listening to the Greater Story podcast. Sam, you're very funny, too. Thank you so much for being on the show, and congrats on the new book.
Thank you. Such a blessing.